If you had told me, standing on the corner of Towing Street with a nylon bag of lip glosses, that one day television cameras would angle at my cheekbones and call me a self-made CEO, I would have spat in your face. Not because the idea offended me, but because my bones knew how heavy hope could be. But hope had a stubbornness that refused to die. It kept rising in me like yeast. It made me to do the ridiculous things. Wake up at dawn to check orders, call manufacturers at midnight, sit in traffic while reading export regulations on my phone, and sleep on the office couch because I could not afford rent for another night. The business exploded in ways I could never have engineered alone. It started small, an influencer who genuinely liked our Glow Shield serum, a boutique in Lekki that loved our body butter because it wasn't like any other, a spa owner who told a friend who told a buyer in Abuja. Work became momentum. Momentum became orders. Orders became a reading. And the reading became a raw. I remember the day the first container left the warehouse. Not a few cartons in the back of a van, but a proper container, stamped and sealed, destined for Accra. I stood at the docks watching men stack our cartons like they were bricks of some new civilization being built. I felt like I was watching a film of my life, but I was in it. I was the actor and the director and the audience all at once. Uduak, you have to come, Yetunde said the morning the shipment left. She was more excited than I felt. That was always her. Fire after the storm. This is the first of many. I smiled, but inside my chest, my heart had a strange ache. Not fear exactly, but reverence. Reverence for how tenuous success could be. I had seen so much instability, how houses and reputations could fall with one accusation, that I learned to sit with each victory like it might be a question rather than a conclusion. Film came quietly. A local magazine did a small feature. A radio host called me a vanguard in natural skincare. I did interviews where I told the truth. Born in Ikotapanda, hawking creams on Lagos streets, sleeping in church floors, and people leaned in. I do not know whether they leaned in for the drama or the promise that someone could actually escape a little beginning, but they leaned in. Recognition came demand. Retailers called to stock us in Abuja, Port Harcourt, Enugu. A supermarket chain asked for shelves across its branches. My inbox filled with inquiries from countries I only knew from football scores. My team grew. We moved from that noisy shed office to a small factory space on the outskirts of the city. We hired chemists, packaging specialists, and a woman who had once hawked creams in markets. We trained them, we taught them how to read labels, measure ingredients, and understand quality control. The training academy began as a corner of the factory, a table and a whiteboard, and quickly turned into a mini classroom where girls learned not just how to mix a cream, but how to manage money, how to speak to buyers, how to stand when a man tried to intimidate them. Mama would visit sometimes. She walked into that factory the first time wearing her old wrapper and carrying a woven basket, and she stood there like she had stumbled into a dream that might evaporate if she blinked too long. I took her hand and led her around the production line. She touched the bottle as if it were a relic. You see this? I said, and she nodded, tears forming. This is what your prayers did. She laughed, wet and surprised, the way someone laughs when reality breaks into song. Later that evening, when she slept in her new room back in Ikotak Mandwa, I called her at night to hear her voice. The house I had sent men to build, 3 rooms, tiled with a small shop in front, still smelled of paint, but it smelled like safety too. For the first time, Mama could sleep without waking to count coins. Success had ripple effects I hadn't fully imagined. I paid school fees for my younger cousin. I sponsored a young woman in the village to learn tailoring. I set up a small clinic under the shade of an old mango tree by Mama's shop, a place where women could see a nurse for free basic care, and where our trained girls could do community outreach. But with success came pressure. The first time I felt it like a physical thing was during an award ceremony. Lights, cameras, people clapping with good faith faces and hungry eyes. I was on stage to accept an entrepreneurship award. I had rehearsed my speech, chosen my dress, and told myself not to cry. But when I stood there, microphone cold in my hand, applause swelling like a tide, I felt exposed. I looked out and saw faces that had once laughed at girls rocking cream on the street. I saw the woman who had once owned a big store in Lagos, watching from the second row with a face like a folded newspaper. Betty. Her first call after the ceremony was brief and clipped. Congratulations, then silence. The next week, the rumors began. Veiled whispers that some of our products weren't as natural as we claimed, that our factory violated health codes, the competitor had filed complaints. I learned quickly that growth is the tinder of jealousy, and that success has a habit of waking enemies. We tightened our quality controls like we tightened the belt. We brought in a third party auditor and published a white paper on our sourcing and manufacturing. We answered every complaint with data, not rage. But rumors have a way of calling into narratives that stick like resin. There were days when orders slowed and I would stand in my office looking at the factory floor, feeling like a woman balancing on a tightrope with no safety net. At night, sleeplessness returned. I would sit on the small balcony of my office and talk to God like a friend who owed me. How much more? I asked once, raw and honest. How much longer before rest comes? One of my suppliers called to say a pallet shipment had been delayed, something about corruption at the port, and I felt old anxiety rise. Workers needed pay, others were due. I called the finance team and made hard decisions, delay salaries by a week's pay for those who volunteered, seek bridge loans, negotiate with buyers. It was leadership in its purest, cruelest form. And then came the sabotage, not blatant, but cunning. Someone inside a distribution chain was diverting samples to a rival. Another time, a shipment was held, not because of ports, but because the buyer's account had been switched to a fake invoice. We fought back with lawyers, audits, and better tracking systems, where every battle cost time, money, trust. Every setback felt like a test. Would I use the power I now had to crush those who hurt me? Or would I build systems so the company could withstand human malice? I chose systems, I chose transparency, I chose to let the company be larger than my heart. Through it all, Yetunde stayed. Her repentance wasn't a single act, it was daily. She worked hard, sometimes harder than anyone. She carried boxes, she whispered new marketing ideas at dawn, and when the fraud at distribution was found, she was the one who sat for hours, cross referencing invoices until the culprit was uncovered. Never asked for applause, she only asked for one more chance. We also started receiving messages from the village. More girls writing, asking if there were traineeships. I would read them aloud to the team and say, we were one of these letters once. We must create a path. That sentence became policy. Allocate 10% of job slots to young women from rural areas. Every time a girl came from a village and left with skills and a paycheck, I felt like a debt was paid to the memory of the young woman who slept on the church floor. Success, I learned, is not a destination you arrive at and rest. It is a responsibility. The louder you become, the more hands reach for you. Sometimes for help, sometimes for harm, sometimes for both simultaneously. My job wasn't only to sell cream, it was to steward trust, to make choices that would protect the girls who believed in me, to build processes that could bear the weight of an empire. The next morning, as the factory roared to life and they packed buses bound for Accra and Lagos and a boutique in Cotonou, I stepped into my office, looked at the logo on the wall, Uduak Organics, and I whispered, let them come, let them try. We are not built on comfort, but on covenant. We will stand. And the company stood, not because I was invincible, but because I chose to keep building, even when the world knocked back. There are moments in life when you realize you've crossed an invisible line, not because someone clapped for you, not because you signed a big contract, because you entered the room and nobody asked who you were anymore. They simply knew. That moment came for me the day I was invited to the Women in Global Enterprise Summit in Abuja, not as a trainee, not as a vendor, as a keynote speaker. I stood in front of a mirror that morning, adjusting my blazer, simple, cream colored, clean lines, and I remember the first time I walked the streets of Ikeja, nylon bag in hand, hawking lip gloss under the sun until my shoulders burned, from dust to conference halls, from a small girl go and find work to madam, what is your vision for Africa's beauty market? It was surreal. It was loud in my spirit. It was also terrifying. I was scheduled to speak after a Nigerian born billionaire who built a food empire. The room was packed cameras, CEOs, policymakers, foreign delegates, kind of people who casually use the word portfolio in conversations. Before the conference, there was a private breakfast, an invitation only roundtable for the most influential female founders on the continent. I almost laughed when I saw my name on the list. And me, one of the most influential. I could still smell the memories of the market dust on my old slippers and still feel the sting of being thrown out by Iquo. Still remember Betty firing me like I was disposable waste. As I walked in, I saw her, Betty, seated at the far end of the glossy conference table, wearing a fitted navy suit, hair sleek, posture proud, as if the years had not passed. Our eyes met for a moment, and her expression switched. Not guilt, not shock, something worse, recognition, the kind that tastes like burnt pride. She wasn't the queen anymore. I wasn't the desperate girl anymore. The table had shifted, and this time I had the seat. I took mine, not beside her, not opposite her, but 2 seats away, right where the placard said, Uduak Peter, founder and CEO, Uduak Organics Ltd. There was a time that title lived only in my dreams. Now it was printed in glossy ink. The moderator began, asking each woman to introduce herself and state her biggest business philosophy. I listened closely. Some spoke about profit margins, some about scaling, some about real estate investment. When it got to me, I didn't reach for numbers. I reached for the thing that got me here. My business philosophy is simple, I said. A good product can change a face, but a good business can change a life. That line hit the room like a soft hammer. Heads lifted. Someone paused mid blackberry tap. I was a street hawker, I continued. Not because I lacked dreams, but because I lacked access. Today, the same business that started with 10,000 naira now employs 42 women, 12 of them former hawkers like me. Success is not just a destination, it's a door. If you lock it, it is vanity. If you open it, it is legacy. Silence, then applause. Not the polite kind, kind with respect stitched into it. Even Betty clapped, but her smile was tight, the kind that said, how dare this girl rise without my permission? The conference went well, the speech went viral, reporters gathered, cameras flashed, a TV station asked me to come for a recorded interview. I smiled, posed, answered their questions, but the truth was, after all the spotlight, what I wanted was silence. When I got back to the hotel room, I removed the blazer, unpinned my hair, and sat on the floor, crossed leg, eating suya out of a plastic bag. That was my way of reminding myself, don't forget the ground that built you. That evening, I called Mama. She didn't care about the summit. She cared about one thing. Uduak, have you eaten? Mama, I spoke to presidents today. Presidents will not digest food for you. Eat and rest. We both laughed. Her voice was an anchor wrapped in palm oil and old proverbs. Sometimes I wondered if God gave me a long journey so her joy would be full when I finally arrived. But the week was not all applause. Success doesn't come without its shadows. The higher you go, the more clearly you see the snakes that hid in the grass. 2 days after the summit, my lawyer called. Uduak, we have a situation. A rival company had filed a complaint claiming our brand name, Uduak Organics, was too close to theirs, a brand I had never heard of. But the issue wasn't the accusation, it was who was behind it. Betty. She had partnered with a silent investor to launch our own new line and was trying to block my export license under the guise of trade marked similarity. It wasn't a business move, it was retaliation. For a moment, the old fear rose, that sinking feeling of what if everything collapses. But the difference between Uduak she once fired and the Uduak she was facing now was simple. I wasn't alone. I wasn't helpless, and I wasn't afraid to fight fair and fight strong. We responded legally. We had paperwork. We had registration proof dated years before her new filing. We had customer reviews, production logs, export records. But I also had something she could never counterfeit: public trust. The story leaked, not from us, but from a journalist who covered the summit. Headlines erupted. Top beauty CEO accused of sabotaging fast rising skincare brand. Former boss tries to crush ex employee's company after viral success. The internet did not love Betty that week. I didn't gloat, I didn't tweet, I didn't throw shade. I just kept working. The market shows, sales doubled, influencers defended us, people boycotted her new line before it even hit shelves. Once again, life taught me some battles are not won by choice, they are won by record, reputation, and restraint. One night, Yetunde walked into my office holding a stack of new distribution contracts. She looked at me, really looked, and her voice shook. I still don't know how you forgive me, Uduak. I don't think I would have forgiven me. I smiled, soft but steady. You didn't feel me, Yetunde. Life failed you. You just didn't have the strength back then. Now you do. She nodded, tears gathering. I just want you to know I'm not leaving again. Not as a pity case, not as a colleague, as someone who owes you loyalty. You don't owe me loyalty, I said. You owe it to the woman you're becoming. She hugged me, and for the first time, it didn't feel like forgiveness anymore. It felt like sisterhood rebuilt from ruins. Then came the biggest news of the year. I was sitting in the office when my assistant walked in, breathless. Madam, you need to see this email. Email was from a distribution corporation in the UK. They wanted to place a 3-year multi-million naira partnership to stock our product in 10 European cities. My hands trembled, not because of the money, but because of the memory of a girl chased off Lekki sidewalks by security guards, now shipping to London storefronts. I whispered a prayer, not long, not loud. Lord, I see what you're doing. Thank you. But even in the joy, I knew one more chapter remained unfinished because success wasn't complete until the people who once looked down on you saw you and said we were wrong. And the final door was equal. The woman who threw me out, who said I was bad luck, who shut the door the day I needed shelter. I hadn't seen her in 2 years, but life has a way of circling the road back to the same people, just at a higher level. And in the next chapter, the circle will close, not with revenge, but with revelation, because real beauty, the kind born from ashes, doesn't just. There's a kind of peace that comes after your life stops being a survival story and becomes a purpose story. But peace does not mean quiet. It just means you finally learned how to stay standing even when the wind changes direction. It was during that phase, the expansion, the interviews, the export deals, the factory renovations that he walked in. His name was Jules Edet, age 32, occupation global product strategist, background born in Nigeria, raised in the US, returned to Africa to build bridges through business. Translation: a man who was smart, tall, dangerous to eyelashes, and reasonable thoughts. We met at an investor hosted networking dinner in Victoria Island. I was there strictly for business, not for romance. I had made peace with the idea that maybe love simply wasn't mine to chase. I had been too busy healing, building, forgiving, and unlearning that I had never kept a space open for it. Then this man, with a smile like a slowed down song, walked up to me and said, "You're Uduak Peter, the woman who turned rejection into a brand." I smiled, trying to be polite. Depends on who's asking. Someone who has read too many articles about you, watched too many interviews, and is still curious. I raised an eyebrow. And what exactly are you curious about? How someone can build that kind of fire, he said, and still look like peace. I didn't answer. I took a sip of water because I wasn't sure if he was complimenting me studying me, or trying to distract me. Minutes later, we were standing at the same part of the room, talking about factory supply lines, the African beauty market, and why Nigerian businessmen love calling everything urgent when it's absolutely not urgent. He didn't flirt, he didn't brag, he didn't try to impress me. He was just present, and present men are rare. We ended up at the same table during dinner, seated beside each other by accident or destiny. I still don't know. All I know is when the desert arrived, he leaned closer and whispered, I don't want to invest in your company. I want to invest in your future. I laughed. That sounds like the kind of line that has broken many women's defenses. Leaned back, amused. True, but I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to be honest early. I didn't come here looking for a merger. I came here and found one, just not the business kind. I blinked slow. Some men speak with ego, some speak with entitlement. He spoke like someone who knew exactly who he was and what he wanted. But I had my guard, a high one. I excused myself early, thanked the host, and went home. And as I washed my face that night, I said aloud in the mirror, we did not come this far to be distracted by jawlines and soft baritone. But it wasn't a distraction, it was persistence in human form. 2 days later, I received an email from him. Not roses, not poetry. A 15-page business proposal on how to scale Uduak Organics into the US market. I stared at the screen stunned. No, hey beautiful, no good morning dear, just here's what I believe a company can become globally if you let me help. It was the first time a man tried to enter my life through my vision instead of my waistline. I said yes to a meeting. The meeting turned into strategy sessions. Strategy sessions turned into shared meals. Shared meals turned into conversations about childhood, pain, destiny, and fate. And just like that, I realized I was smiling again. Not the professional smile, the real one, the one that starts in your eyes and travels. Weeks passed. Then one Sunday after church, he drove me to a quiet seaview location in Lekki. No crowd, no cameras, just wind, waves, and a speech he had clearly rehearsed. He held my hands gently, almost reverently, and said, Udwak, I don't want to complete you. You're already whole. I want to partner with the woman you've built, the woman you're still becoming. You let me walk this future with you. My heart didn't race. It settled, like a home finally found. I said yes, not loudly, not dramatically, just yes. For life always asks a price before it grants the joy. Because the day he told me, the person I want you to meet is my mother, I thought nothing of it until we walked into her house. The house was familiar, too familiar. The stair railings, the scent of imported candles, the coldness of the marble floor. Then she walked out. Betty. Petty, the woman who once fired me, humiliated me, tried to control me, and later tried to destroy my company, was standing in the doorway holding a tray of fruit like a hostess in a bad dream. My future mother in law. The world slowed. You were smiling, unaware. Mom, this is the woman I've been telling you about, the one I want to marry. Betty's eyes widened, not in surprise, but in a kind of horror she was fighting to hide. I didn't move. She didn't speak. Time held its breath. You looked between us confused. You two know each other? I breathed, a slow inhale, a slow exhale, and said, yes, we do. I looked at her. Mom? Betty's voice came out thin, trembling at the edges. Excuse me, I need a moment. She walked away, and in that moment, I saw the entire circle of life close around us. The rejected street girl, powerful businesswoman, the man who loved her, and the enemy who now needed her acceptance to remain in her son's world. I wasn't angry, I wasn't bitter, I was something deeper, free, because I no longer needed revenge. Life had written it in silent ink. You took my hand. Udwak, what's going on? I turned to him, voice steady. Love found me, you. But before I walk into it, I must walk through what tried to break me. He nodded. He didn't push. He didn't defend his mother. He just squeezed my hand like he promised. The next words I spoke weren't to him, they were to myself. I survived her once. This time I will redeem her, not for her sake, but for mine. And just like that, I knew chapter 12 would not be about success, it would be about mercy. Mercy for Betty, mercy for Equal, mercy for everyone who tried to shape me into something bitter. Because beauty from ashes isn't about rising, it's about restoring. Some endings do not come with fireworks, some come quietly, like morning light on a broken wall, revealing not just what was destroyed, but what survived. The day Betty asked to speak with me, I already knew it wasn't going to be about business or contract or the company she almost sabotaged. It's going to be about the one thing people fear more than accountability, humility. She asked me to come alone. No lawyers, no you, no cameras, just us. I went, not because I wanted to hear her apology, but because the woman I had become deserved closure. She was sitting in her living room, wearing a simple gown, no jewelry, no boardroom confidence, no boss lady shield. She looked ordinary, human, almost fragile. For the first time, I saw not the woman who once held power, but the woman who had lost control of it. She didn't start strong. She started with a long silence. Then, I don't have excuses, Uduak. I had authority and I abused it. I had opportunity and I wasted it. I was threatened by what I didn't understand. Your strength. I didn't interrupt. I let her continue. You rejected me and I punished you for it. Not because of what you did, but because you reminded me of what I could never be. Principled. You walked away from everything I tempted you with. Couldn't understand why someone would choose integrity over comfort. Her voice cracked. And now, the same woman I fired will soon become my daughter in law. I took a slow breath. This was not revenge, this was redemption happening in front of me. Betty, I said gently, I forgave you long before this day. She blinked. Why? Because I refused to let you live in my spirit longer than God allowed you in my life. Silence. Then she said the most unexpected words. Teach me. Not help me. Not sorry. Just teach me. Teach me how to lead without crushing anyone. Teach me how to build without stealing. Teach me how to love without controlling. It was the first time she came to me not as a boss, not as an enemy, but as a human, flawed, repentant, reachable. I nodded, not as a mentor, not as a boss, but as one woman to another. I will work with you if you're willing to start again. She whispered, I am. And just like that, the enemy became a student. Life wasn't done with its full circle moment. I was in my office signing off on a new distribution deal for East Africa when my phone buzzed. It was Dr. Irema, my old friend, now a surgeon at a private hospital. Uduak, I have a patient, a widow. She can't pay for surgery. Case is urgent. I don't want to pressure you, but send the name. I said without thinking. She did. I froze. Equal. The same equal who threw me out with my nylon bag. The same woman who chose her husband's lies over my truth. The same woman whose words will never become anything once buried me in shame. And she was the one he needed. I didn't even think twice. I drove to the hospital. She was thinner, weaker, older. Life had folded her into a smaller version of the woman who once strutted with pride in Lagos boutiques. She didn't see me coming, but when she looked up, her eyes widened, not with fear, but with grief. Uduak, she whispered. I'm here, I said. After everything I did to you, she choked. You came? Yes, because God didn't save me so I could watch others drown. She began to cry, the kind of crying that shakes the bones. I was wrong, I was proud, and now I'm alone. I held her hand. I'm not alone anymore. I paid for the surgery, I paid for the aftercare, and I didn't post it online. Some victories are too scared for social media. When she was discharged, She hugged me and said, I prayed that life would teach me a lesson. I just didn't know how the answer to that prayer would come in form of the girl I mistreated. I smiled. Life is funny like that. The same year, my company was featured in Forbes Africa, not because we are the biggest, but because our story, hope, failure, integrity, resilience had become bigger than our products. We opened a beauty training academy for young women who had no sponsors. We funded 200 scholarships for girls in rural areas who wanted business degrees. We built Mama's new house in Ikota Kwandwa, painted in bright aqua blue, her favorite color. She opened a mini processing center in the village so women could earn without leaving home. My younger siblings went to school, all expenses paid. The same village that once mocked us now held ceremonies in Mama's compound. And me, I married you. Not because I needed a man, but because I had finally found one who wasn't afraid of my fire. On our wedding day, Mama held my face and said, Uduak, where others came back with scars, you came back with a crown. You put it on every head you could find. That was when I knew I had not just risen, I had risen with purpose. People often ask me, what was the turning point of your life, Uduak? Was it the money, the business, the recognition? I always answered the same way. No, the turning point was the day I chose not to become what they did to me. They threw me out. I built open doors. They lied to destroy me. I told truth to heal others. They tried to use me. I became useful to the world. That is the real beauty from ashes, not the rise, but the transformation. Not the applause, but the mercy. Not that I made it, but that I didn't lose my soul on the way. If my story teaches anything, let it teach this. Your pain is not the end, it is the raw material of your power. Rejection is not your identity, it is your redirection. You do not need revenge, your victory is enough testimony. You can come from nothing and still become a blessing to everything. My name is Uduak Peter. I was once a street hawker. I'm a woman who built empires, not in spite of the ashes, because of them.